Hello friends, today we are going to be creating Kimmy Cantrell abstract slab faces out of clay. Kimmy is an African American contemporary artist from Atlanta, is self-taught and known for creating colorful ceramic masks. Here's just a quick look at a few of those before we get started. All right, friends, you're going to be given a piece of clay that's been cut from a larger block. It's going to look similar to this. You're going to place it on your canvas mat and make sure that you have your supplies ready. All right, friends, make sure you have your mat, your roller, and your clay. We're going to start rolling that slab. You're going to want to put nice, even pressure on your slab. You don't want one end or the edges to be really thin and the middle to be thicker. It wants to be the same thickness all over. This is not a sitting down activity. You're going to want to push your chair under the table and stand up and kind of lean over your clay using your body weight rather than trying to arm wrestle it into the size slab that you want. So stand up and use your body weight. If the clay starts to stick a little bit to the mat, you don't want to try to stick your fingers underneath and peel it off. You're going to flip it into your hand like I just did. So roll it. You can then lift the mat and flip it over into your hand. Now notice that I turned it. That is because I want to have a slab that's kind of the same size all the way around. I don't want it necessarily longer or wider, but kind of equal. So each time you flip the clay, you're going to turn the clay if you want something that's more equal in shape, meaning not longer in one direction. Once you think you have it the right thickness, try not to go too thin because then you're going to have to start over. So about as thick as my pinky is what I want. And from there, I'm going to turn it in the direction that I'm going to start off my face with and begin cutting. All right, now we're going to cut the shape of our face. I have my slab ready to go. I'm going to take either a plastic knife or a fettling knife or some other tool that's going to cut through my clay very smoothly and easily, making a nice even cut. I'm going to not wrinkle that up, that clay that I'm cutting off. I'm going to need that for later, so you want to leave that flat and just put it off to the one side. Once you've cut it, you cannot put it back together. So the cut is the cut. Just take that piece and put it off to the side. Remember, they're abstract, so if it's not exactly what you envisioned or exactly how you want the knife to go, that's totally fine. Now I have some slip here, which is basically just water with some clay dissolved in it. You can use either water or slip for this next step. I just happen to have the slip right next to us. And you're going to just dip a little bit in with your finger and just make those edges smooth. While they do feel smooth right now because the clay is still moist and soft, once these go in the kiln, those edges will turn sharp, like sharp enough to cut your skin. So you want to make sure that, especially the corners and all the edges, just lightly, not a lot of water. It should not look like you're giving it a bath, okay? One dip or a couple of dips should make it all the way around your piece like I'm doing right here. So once your edges are smooth, then you're ready for the next step. All right, our next step is to add some texture and use our slip and score technique or our scratch and attach technique to add some features. Notice I took one of those scrap pieces of clay that I cut off and I'm starting to cut some shapes. These shapes are going to be used for my lips. I'm kind of smoothing out the edges. I don't even really need water for this. If you do need water because the pieces seem like they might be very sharp, you can use a little tiny bit of water, but we can also smooth it out in a little bit. There's going to be some things on your table to add some textures. Don't go overboard because you can add more texture as you go and once you've finished all your features. You don't want to do anything that might add air pockets once you start adding your features on. So maybe just a little bit, around the edges and nothing that's going to make too deep of an indentation in your clay. So I just had some plastic canvas and some burlap and this little plastic plate that has a very dotted texture on it. Again, I just did a little bit. If you have some like residue from the burlap on your clay, it doesn't matter. It will burn off eventually. All right, our next step is to slip and score or scratch and attach. You take a very bristly brushes. This brush particular is very, very stiff and bristly, And when you brush it on your clay, you're kind of scratching the clay. If you don't see brush strokes or little scratches in your clay, press a little bit harder so that you get those scratches along with the muddy looking water residue that you see as I'm adding on these lips. Let me show you a little hack for making circles. Cut off a piece of clay, roll it into a marble shape. Take your brush, get ready to scratch and attach where you want it, put the marble on and press it down with your finger, or the palm of your hand will work also. Let's watch that a couple more times. Cut this up, cut up your clay, roll it into marbles, and get ready to scratch and attach with your slip and score. Make sure that when you press anything down and you're attaching things, that you're pressing it down well so as not to form air bubbles in between the two pieces that you're connecting. All right, remember, every time you're slipping and scoring, I'm adding on my nose and my eyes right now, that you're pressing things down, smoothing out your edges. You can do that with your finger or with the brush. And making sure that when you press them, when you're slipping and scoring, that you're pressing things down so you're not creating air pockets underneath the bottom and the piece that you're attaching. To add your signature, whether it's just your initials or a part of your first name and your year, you're going to use some sort of tool to scratch it into the surface lightly. Notice that I'm dipping the wood tool into the slip to keep it moist so it doesn't rip the clay. I'm also going to show you, I have a pin tool here, which is pretty sharp, so if you use this, be very careful. And you're scratching super, super lightly and making sure that you're not creating rough edges. All right, we're going to add some more details. I really like to use popsicle sticks for adding lines and details. I grabbed a cup of water because I actually like water as opposed to slip. For this, I dip the tip of the popsicle stick in the water and I just trace over the lines that I want a couple of times, because it wets the clay just enough to make it like a really smooth line and to not make it so it's too deep into the clay, but just visible enough. I can use the back of my brush to make little dots. I have some other things here, the side of my popsicle stick to make lines. I can use this little pointy wood tool or this marker cap to add more details, but less is more. Do not go overboard because we will be adding lots of color and patterns with our glazes too. So remember what I said about clay, don't go too far, because if you go too far you may have to start all over again. So less is more with this because we will be adding a lot more details with our color as well. Have fun, guys.